Hi there, this is Jonathan Ginsberg. I'm a personal bankruptcy attorney here in the Atlanta area. And I want to talk to you today about alternatives to bankruptcy. And what kind of brought this to mind was that Susan Blum and I were talking, my colleague in my office were talking about how long it takes sometimes to get bankruptcy cases going. What we mean by that is that folks, when they think about filing bankruptcy, may contact us, and it may be 3 months, 6 months, even a year before they actually file. And I think there's a lot of hesitation that folks have about filing bankruptcy. Maybe there's concern about the long-term impact of it, although I will tell you that getting your credit back is a lot easier now than it ever was. But I think there's just a lot of hesitation that people have. They're hoping that things will improve, they won't have to file, or there's nothing forcing them to file. There's no pending repossession or foreclosure, anything like that, wage garnishment, and so they may wait. So the question then arises, what can you do in the alternative to bankruptcy, and is there any disadvantage to waiting? And let me try to answer that question. So as far as what your alternatives to bankruptcy would be, you can do nothing. And I will tell you that there are some situations where doing nothing is the best thing. Some creditors are lazy. They will maybe write you a couple letters, but they won't take any action. And as time goes by, either A, your circumstances will change. You'll have the money to pay the debt. Number two is that you might be able to work out a debt settlement. The older debt is, the more likely you can get a favorable settlement at something less than 100 cents on the dollar. Number three is, and I've seen this happen a few times, not often, but a few times, the creditor will sell the debt. It'll simply disappear. No one will come after you ever. And I've seen people basically have thousands of dollars of debt, just no one ever comes after them. And at some point, usually after 6, 7 years, especially if you do nothing with it, the debt becomes stale. It's no longer collectible, and you're home free. So doing nothing is certainly one option. Another option is to settle the debt. And again, what I find is that the older the debt is, the longer it's been since you've made payments on it, the more likely you can be able to get a favorable settlement. I've seen people get settlements for 50 cents, 30 cents on the dollar. Again, the older it is, the better it is. The more times it's sold. Realize when a debt buyer buys a debt, they're paying 2 or 3 cents on the dollar a lot of times. So if they get 10 cents on the dollar, they're doubling or tripling their money. So you might be able to do that if you have access to some cash. I think that, I've seen people when they owe a lot of money, I've seen situations where there's Fair Debt Collection Practices Act violations, and we can use that as leverage to either settle the debt or to recover damages, and that delays any sort of collection as well. So if you're getting harassment from a bill collector, they're threatening you with jail, they're using curse words, they're calling you at 2 o'clock in the morning, we should talk. There may be an FDCPA claim there. So those are some alternatives to bankruptcy. Obviously, debt settlement plans. If you're going to do that, I would go through something like consumer credit counseling or credibility, whatever they call it now. I would avoid the private debt settlement companies, the ones you hear about on the radio. Those usually are not very legitimate. I'd be very careful with those at the very least. But you can do many times your own debt settlement program if you have some form of cash or if you use a reputable organization. So those are some of the alternatives. As far as whether you should wait or not, again, that's going to depend. One downside to waiting is that if you have outstanding debt, the older it gets, the worse it looks on your credit report. So if you have debt you have not paid on a debt for 90 days, that's a lot worse than 30 days. So your credit can really get damaged very quickly if you have a lot of old debt you have not paid on. So that's one negative thing about waiting or holding off. Number two is that the longer you wait, the more likely it is you're going to get sued. And of course, if you get sued, you need to take action. That's when you want to call a lawyer. You don't want to get a default judgment. And on that note, I've seen too many cases where people get sued and don't know about it. Either the creditor files suit in the wrong jurisdiction, there's a problem with service, or somebody at the house, maybe an elderly parent or a teenager gets the paper and doesn't know what to do with it, sticks it in a drawer someplace, or you get the lawsuit and you're freaked out and you say, I just don't want to think about this, and you kind of let it go. You got to be real careful about that. In those situations, if you've been sued, time is not your friend. So I would say if you know you have a debt and nothing seems to be happening, it's probably worth taking a look on the local court's website to see if you've been sued. Check your credit report. every 3 or 4 months to make sure there's no lawsuit on there, because sometimes if something seems too good to be true, it probably is. No news is not always good news, so you want to be real careful about that. So that's kind of the alternatives to bankruptcy. I would also tell you that if you owe a lot of money and you think that maybe bankruptcy is an option, the sooner you talk to a bankruptcy lawyer, the better. One of the things we'll tell you is avoid making common pre-bankruptcy mistakes. Don't go after money in your 401k or IRA plan. Don't transfer assets to protect them. Don't pay your brother that old debt you owe back. All these things you want to talk to a lawyer about first. You don't want to screw up everything and make preferential payments and fraudulent transfers and then come to a lawyer and say, okay, I'm ready to file bankruptcy. It doesn't work that way. So as soon as you realize that bankruptcy may be an option, that's the time to sit down with a bankruptcy lawyer like me or like Susan, and let's go over what the options are, and then you can think about it, make your decision, but at least you're going into it intelligently without making some of these big mistakes that people a lot of times make. So I hope this has been sort of a helpful overview about alternatives to bankruptcy and what happens if you wait. If you liked it, please give it a thumbs up on YouTube. That really helps. Subscribe to our channel. Like it on Facebook. That also helps us. And of course, if you have any questions about this or any other bankruptcy law topic, please reach out to me. I'm happy to try to help you any way I can. So for now, this is Jonathan Ginsberg, and I wish you well.